stay with the story around the crime statistics now and take you to Parliament. That's where ENCA's Lindsay Dentlinger is standing by. Lindsay, what an incredibly heavy morning it's been for all of us as a country. Not much improvement there in those numbers, particularly if we look at the murder rate, the rate of sexual crimes, sexual assaults and rape, of course.
Good morning, Michelle. Yes, a heavy morning indeed. The police minister and his top generals spending about 2 hours in Parliament this morning unpacking those crime statistics. And to quote the police minister himself, not a rosy picture. But to unpack that further for us, I have Andrew Fall of the Institute for Security Studies to give us his analysis. Andrew, thank you very much for joining us. As the police minister says, not a rosy picture. How do you analyse what he's told us today?
Thanks very much. No, not a rosy picture. Violent crime in general is up. As always, murder is our best indicator of crime in general, and murder is continuing to rise. We've seen a 35% increase in murder over the past 8 years. This year, we've seen a slight decline in the rate of increase, which could be seen as a positive, and the minister tried to present it as positive. But ultimately, that continued increase in almost all categories of violent crime is very concerning. It's important to remember that this comes on the back of a 55% decline between 1995 and 2011. So we need to get back to that downward trend.
The minister is saying that he thinks the crime needs to be halved in a shorter amount of time than the 10 years the president had put to him. Is that doable given what we've heard today?
I'm not sure. Giving crime reduction targets is dangerous in law enforcement and criminal justice because it provides perverse incentives for the manipulation of statistics rather than tackling the problems that are causing violence. What we did see, which was positive, was a decline in some of the categories of aggravated robbery which police can address, like cash and transit heists, bank robberies, hijackings, and those kind of crimes are reduced through careful policing. If we can see that same kind of careful policing addressing domestic violence, violence in the homes, violence between people who know each other, particularly in the hotspots where we know that the majority of violence is concentrated, then I think we can see a decline. But we don't want to aim for reduction targets. We just want to face the problems with the most evidence-based, targeted interventions possible.
Here in the Western Cape, we can't ignore the situation of what the crime statistics show. Again, the top police stations with the most number of murders, the top 3 here in the Western Cape. Again, Nyanga are topping that list. The police minister saying that has something to do with the size of the precinct and that the numbers are in fact down. What do you make of it?
It's important to remember when we talk about murder capitals and the top 30 stations that these are absolute numbers. When we talk about murder and all crime, the best way to think about it is murder rates. How many incidents per population living in the area? So murder, Nyanga recorded the most murders, but it has a lot of people living in it. If we transferred those figures into rates, they would shift, and the SAPS didn't provide us with rates this year, so it's difficult to judge that. However, we do know that murder is very concentrated in particular stations like Nyanga, Khayelitsha, Philippi East, and that within those stations most murder happens over weekends and in particular micro-locations of those precincts. This tells us that with quite simple but careful policing, we absolutely can reduce violence where it is most concentrated and harmful, and in that way we can have a real impact.
Just very quickly, how does the police, do they address bringing down this crime?
Policing that is targeted and intentional rather than random and reactive has been shown to have an impact. That's what the police need to do. So focus, don't try to be everywhere at once, don't celebrate the idea of general visibility, be visible where you need to be visible, address the people who are known to be repeat offenders, but at the same time to address long-term trends in South Africa, we have to marry that policing with social interventions that address our violence-accepting norms, which lead us to continually solve problems with violence.
Andrew, thank you very much for your time. Michelle, that's the assessment from the Institute for Security Studies, very briefly on what we've been told by the police minister. Over 22,000 murders in South Africa over the past, I won't say year, their financial year that they calculate, and so certainly not a great picture and a lot of work cut out for the police.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for that. Lindsay Dentlinger is